morning and welcome to our annual Black History Month Assembly. My name is Aaron Atkins.
And I'm Simone Winters. We will be your MCs for this year's assembly.
We are here to celebrate Black culture and the effect it has had on the United States. The 2019 theme Black Migration commemorates the centennial end of the First World War in 1918 and explores the complex meanings and implications of its international struggle and aftermath. While inclusive of earlier centuries, the theme focuses especially on the 20th century through today.
Beginning in the early decades of the 20th century, African American migration patterns included relocation from southern farms to southern cities, from the South to the Mideast, Midwest, and the West, from the Caribbean to the United States cities, as well as to migrant labor farms, and the immigration of noted African Americans to Africa and to European cities. Throughout today's program, we will dive deeper into the contemporary conditions, past and present, and that gives us the cause for the critical pause in our studies and deliberations to consider the specific and unique issues faced by African Americans during the Great Migration.
Please may we all stand as the choir performs the Black National Anthem.
The Great Migration. Driven from their homes by the lack of economic opportunities, harsh segregationist laws, clan violence, and unfair economic systems like sharecropping, more than 6 million African Americans fled the South, headed to the North and West, with hopes of building a better life from 1916 to 1970. They took advantage of the need for industrial workers that first rose during the First World War. There was a shortage of industrial labor, and as the war waged on, so did the need for workers, which lured many blacks seeking employment. As competition for work increased, so did competition for housing and increasingly crowded cities, which also increased racial tensions. Though the KKK had officially been dissolved in 1869, it still continued underground, and blacks who migrated north were still targets. White neighborhoods also used racially based housing ordinances and covenants to prevent blacks from moving into certain communities. As a result, blacks created their own neighborhoods and cities within larger cities. resulting in new areas of culture like Harlem in New York City, which was home to some 200,000 African Americans. The Black migration experience gave birth to the growth of the artistic movement that came to be known as the Harlem Renaissance. It brought all members of the African diaspora together: African Americans, Africans, Afro-Cubans, Central and South Americans of African descent, and Haitians, each merging their cultures, languages, food, music, and religions. The Black migration also gave rise to Black political activism, and many Blacks finally saw a place for themselves in public life, actively confronting racial prejudice, as well as economic, political, and social challenges to create Black urban culture that would exert enormous influence in the decades to come. Today, 35 million Black Americans are heirs to this migration. They represent the most diverse population in the United States, one that has embraced a rich heritage created by the millions of people of color who stood against oppression, searched for better opportunities, and have paved the way for future generations.
Black culture has had a real influence on dance and other forms of art. In the 20th century, after the American Civil War, there was a surge of people from the Caribbean and Deep South who migrated into North American cities. In New York, the District of Harlem became home to Black people from different cultural traditions with their own dances and music.
Whether in the form of tap dancing, the jitterbug, the stroll, the chicken head, or even the nene, Black dances have become the latest craze in mainstream pop culture. Often, the history and origin of these Black dances and their significance to the Black community are unappreciated or, in some circles, totally ignored.
Today, we show our appreciation for the style of Black dance with the help of our very own Sophisticats. 1910 to 1970, approximately 6 million African Americans migrated from the southern parts of the United States to northeast, midwest, and western states in search of a better life. The civil rights movement was without a doubt influenced and impacted by music. African Americans began writing and playing freedom songs, inspiring thousands of people to fight for their rights.
Jazz, soul, and gospel thrived due to the migration civil rights movement. These songs served as a rallying flag for Black culture. The songs became socially and politically conscious as African Americans fought oppression and pushed for equal rights. Please show some love for our very own Thornton Unity singers.
Let's thank our choir for that magnificent gospel selection.
fact that black migrants enjoyed significantly greater freedom in the North, life for the new residents was far from easy. Early black settlers, even those who preceded new arrivals by only a few years, resented the migrants and the problems that seemed to accompany them as job, housing, and political anxieties only increased with each new arrival. Life today parallels in the struggles black faced during the Great Migrations.
Angie Thomas, The Hate U Give is an award-winning young adult novel turned movie about police brutality that transcends the genre's audience. It elegantly handles difficult themes and illustrates nuanced aspects of life for young black Americans. Here to perform her dramatic interpretation of The Hate U Give, let's give it up for our very own Ms. Desiree Parker.
We knew each other since we were babies, but if he was here, he'd probably say that actually he's 5 months, 2 weeks, and 3 days older than me. He had these hazel brown eyes, and every time he smiled, he had a set of dimples, and he always smelled like soap and baby powder. But that's just who he was. He was my best friend. I remember how when we were younger, we used to always take baths together. We would giggle all the time because he had a wee-wee and I had what his grandmother would always call a wee-ha. You know, he always had some kind of like, you know, we weren't doing anything wrong. Officer 115, he assumed that we were up to no good because of the color of our skin. The streets blocked off. A crowd marches down the middle of it. They're holding these signs and posters with Khalil's face on it. See, everyone is so angry because Officer 115 hasn't been charged yet. But most importantly, because this keeps happening and they just keep getting away with it. But it's okay. Because the cops, they're investigating. After what I told them, I'm not even sure what's left to investigate. I saw Officer 115 shoot Khalil. It is impossible to be unarmed when our blackness is what they fear. I was young when my dad had to talk with me. He said, "Stop. You do whatever they tell you to do. You don't make any sudden movements, and you only speak when spoken to." I tried to keep the incident a secret because I already saw the way those kids in my private school already looked at me, and I couldn't stomach the thought of what they would think if they find out I was with Khalil that night. I'm not brave. My mom said that being brave is doing something, even though you're scared of doing it. I am terrified. And a part of me knows that had it been me who was shot instead of Khalil, you know, he would have jumped on TV in a second to tell the world what happened. He would have known that this was about more than just me or him. This was about us with a capital U. It's about everyone who looks like us, feels like us, and is going through the same situation with us, despite not even knowing me or Khalil. And I guess my silence, it wasn't helping us. I knew what I had to do. I had to tell the world the story. 3 hours. That's how long it took. They asked all kinds of questions. Well, what did he say? Where did he grab his license? What angle was he shot at? I don't know. But does that even matter? They were trying to rationalize his death. You want to know what happened to Khalil that night? Well, he wanted to see me home safely. And that's when we were stopped by the cops. There was no one around but us and the officer, and Khalil willingly gave his license. Officer, if you don't mind me asking, what exactly are we being stopped for? Get out! Get out of the car now! I tried to calm the situation down. Hi. Excuse me, sir. I'm sorry. Shut up! Put your hand on the dashboard. I put my hand on the dashboard. He pulls Khalil out of the car by his arm, pinning him against the door. I fight to find my voice, but I am shaking too much to be still. He searches Khalil 3 times, finding nothing. He orders us to stay there as he goes back to his patrol car, and Khalil, he does move. But it was to see if I was okay. Hey, yo, stop. Are you alright? I said don't move! Oh, please, Khalil. I tried to stop the bleeding. There was just so much blood. The officer, he screams, telling me to get up. He's pointing the same gun, and he just shot out from it. Please, sir, please. Don't shoot. Officer 115 is found not guilty in the killing of Khalil Harris. This is about us, with a capital U. It's about everyone who looks like us, feels like us, and is going through the same situation with us. This is about Trayvon Martin, Rakia Boyd, Freddie Gray, Khalil Harris. This is about the hate we give each other. But we could end this hate together.
The Great Migration eventually relocated hundreds and thousands of blacks from the rural South to the urban North. Artists such as Duke Ellington, Ella Fitzgerald, Louis Armstrong, Dizzy Gillespie, and Nat King Cole became very famous as the more sophisticated music began to appeal to white people as well as blacks.
Since the migration had led to jobs and prosperity for African Americans, more people were able to buy records and listen to music in their homes. This greatly intensified the spread of jazz music throughout. In addition, musicians were exposed to better education and an increase in their musical abilities. This expanded the development of music and ultimately caused for new methods and forms of jazz to develop.
In honor of those who paved the way for black music, we will now have a musical selection from our very own jazz band.
Most African Americans made the trip to the north by train in search of better opportunities. Many of them found their way to Chicago and then to the suburbs of Chicago. Now we have our 301 poets spitting about the Great Migration and how we have the responsibility to continue the growth it has started right here in Chicago.
Let's snap it up for spoken word.
No weapon formed against us shall prosper. Kingdoms of gold, pyramids beyond your intelligence. Fertile lands and sands more precious than any treasure, immeasurable in worth. Taken from our homeland, whether we were breathing or greeting a cousin asleep in a cruel meeting. No matter the fate, always cruel and demeaning, burn like wax during celebrations. Yeah, nobody can hear us screaming. Shipped to the land of the free with no freedoms, landed in this new place, abused, misused, and confused just because of our race. Got minds wasted for hundreds of years just so we could pick cotton on your plantations. South, slave till I'm south and landed till I'm north, because my great-great-grandmother would rather push up her feet on earth, fight past her worth, fighting for her freedom. We did it for our culture. Eastern powers kept clubs like lit for hours, painted museums with symbols we could claim as ours. Ideology left us with a confidence greater than broken flowers. Yet still, from the east to the west, the best is in the middle. Chicago, we don't fiddle with your violence, your demons can never get to me. But violence breeds in my city.
But you still see the people standing up for positivity. Outstanding your negativity.
Fighting for credibility
in a land of infidelity.
Justice can't be claimed as brothers and sisters get framed. Oh, they had a gun. Why you think we always running? Because we running for a better life. We dying out here. We running for freedom. No weapon formed against us shall prosper.
I was told for many years that 666 was a demonic number associated with who shall not be named, and I was the furthest thing from it. Hold up, they taught me to hate myself, because did you know that 6 protons, 6 neutrons, and 6 electrons equal melanin, the color that blesses our skin? Blessings aren't given by Satan, so don't come in with that Illuminati mess. Try another angle. Don't push me through your pipeline, because I'm too bright like my future, and even if I was darker, my dreams would still be vivid. This time I'm painting a bigger picture. Let that sink in, please hold your prison. Don't you ever say let's make America great again, unless this time you're including the melanin. Tell me about the Willie Lynch letter. A white man's plan to divide us. He wrote up a list of differences and we copied it. No screenshotting. Why do you think we're still debating light skin and dark skin? We are not oddities. To modify yourself to be we are black and beautiful, that's why they call us royalty. We rise like pyramids and I got privilege. But I understand don't fear me, so hopefully only half of the bullets will hit me because I'm black like that. But I'm light skinned because colored people come in hella colors people. From as white as porcelain to as black as panthers. Don't ever say go back to our country, because you brought us here. Now this is America. No weapon formed against us shall prosper.
People make the election break. Why you jumping up the color of my pigment? I couldn't tell just read it from my fine pigment. Shift that our ancestors tell us what y'all said to practice on.
What about us?
Government shutdown, we the mental shutdown again.
What about us?
That's not from like everything we do is part for minorities. Why you can't become the person that the same thing in pursuit of professional lifestyle instead of picking pictures of pills?
Get it together, black man.
We lost sight white people fast and what was important. Now look this, call it deeply into the white man's trap. No weapon fought against us shall
Prosper.
You mistaken me for a raven when I simply been a black crow. You bug and say I'm thugging because of my hoodie and my black clothes. No Jim Crows when I
At this time, we would like to announce our 2019 Black History Month Art Contest winner. We are incredibly thankful for the students who submitted entries for the art contest and would like to congratulate LaDonna Camphor, our first place winner. Thank you, LaDonna, for your incredible artistic submission.
We will also like to take this time to thank all of our participants, guests, and you, our audience, for your participation in this year's Black History Month Assembly. Now, we will have a few words from our principal, Dr. Ratner.
Welcome to our parents who are here today joining with us. Welcome to Wildcat Country. Thank you for coming. I'll be very brief. First of all, I want to give a big round of applause to our awesome students who had an awesome program for us. Thank you so much. You know, I heard from a staff member after the first one, you know, of course the comments was, it seems to get better every single year. You know, Thornton is unique. It's a dynamic school, and it's unique because we step out on courage to do things that most schools won't do, and most schools don't do. And even the way that I'll speak with you and the way you receive it, I greatly appreciate it. Now, let me just share with you that I'm connected, right? I'm connected, and I love humanity enough, particularly my own people, because they're not loved enough. And so it pains me. It pains me when I hear about these unnecessary deaths, and it pains me when I see us caught up in a system that we perpetuate that system. Years ago, I was blessed to attend a convention in Harvard where a presenter stood up and said that the system is doing exactly what it's designed to do. So now, when you see all this killing in Chicago, right, of black on black, it's not just Chicago, it's in any city in America. The system is doing exactly what it's designed to do. And when you look at a system like that, you have to understand a system of colonization that we're under since we've been slaves. We've never had the true knowledge of self to the point where Carter G. Woodson, who was the father of Black History Month, wrote a book called The Miseducation of the Negro, us, not having a knowledge of self. So we could never achieve equality without a knowledge of self. So here's my point. Here's my point. The decolonization has been taking place a long time ago. The decolonization took place right on this stage in 301. It took place with Desiree Parker. The people who have the courage to stand up and speak with a level of consciousness that a lot of us don't have. There's a price to pay in some circles for giving those kind of speeches. There's a price to pay. There's a price to pay for conducting yourself like that. You can be okay as long as you're quiet, but the minute you raise your voice in a level of consciousness where you're addressing inequities, there's a problem. So here's my point. Here's my point in all of this. Thornton Township High School, we're different. We're going to continue to be different. We're going to walk with a level of dignity, unseen, unknown, like no other. Now, the point is this. The hell with this. We ain't trying to prove nothing to no white privilege, white supremacy, none of that crap. We want to prove it to ourselves that we're a dignified people. That you're a people that you're born to be created, what you were created to be. From your creator. That's our dignity. And you go on, and that's how we change the world. Not that the colonizers are going to give you anything that's going to really set you free. Your first freedom starts here in the mind of what you think about yourself. All right? On that note, Wildcats, have a great rest of the day. Have a great rest of the week. Ms. Russell.